us on the map. Mr. Caruana leading the beat. Australia global rank 6. Feeling the heat like immortality.
All right, so in this video, or maybe videos, I'm not sure how long this will go for, we're looking at the impact of the aging population. Sorry about the heading, the texter was left uncapped, which I swear wasn't me, but I'm pretty sure it was me. I'm sorry. So let's go through the syllabus data here. The first point, what does the data tell us about the aging population? All right, so first of all, you need to understand that when we talk about aging population, we are talking about Australians who are 65 or older. So that is the aged. Currently, 1 in 6 Australians are 65 or older. That's a lot, okay? If you think about, if the average life expectancy, okay, is, let's just round it up between the two of them, let's just say 83, okay? And if you break that up into percentages, like, so 1 in 6 to get to 80 is what? Oh my gosh, it's like 13, okay? So every 13 years, should be a sixth of the population if everything was equal, all right? So that means if you go to 83, you minus 13, 70. But we've got this extra lump hanging on. Now, not only does that mean that like this section of Australia is heavily populated, but also it's projected to increase to 1 in 4 over the next 50 years. Now, touch wood, I will still be here in 50 years' time. I'll be pushing it, but I should still be around. 1 in 4, that's like nearly, well, it's nearly going to be 25% of all Australians if the current rates keep going the way they are, all right? We can't determine what's going to happen in the future, but if the growth of the population segments keep changing the way they are, in 50 years' time, we will be at 1 in 4. So that means that the aging population is getting larger, all right? Why? Why is our aging population getting larger? Well, there's 2 main reasons that drive this. So the first one is probably the second reason, which you all thought of instantly because you're smart little cookies. Increased life expectancy due to advances in healthcare, prescription medication, treatments, early diagnostics, hygiene, technology, etc. Okay, so those things all do keep people alive for longer, which means that the life expectancy goes up and therefore you have more people surviving, which is good, okay, especially if you have a loved one who is in that category. You want them to still be around. But the first one we haven't really talked about before, declining birth rates. So due to lots of different factors, and I'm sure your parents probably complain about this. Well, I'm a parent, I complain about it, right? Cost of living, all right? And it's not just a normal thing, like it's been going up and up and up and up and up at more of a rate, we call that the inflation rate. So the inflation rate is higher than generally people's pay rates going up. So the biggest thing that people do is not have kids, because kids are expensive, all right? Not that you buy them, but you're always buying them things. Can I have that? Can I have this? Can I have that? Can't go anywhere without getting asked, can I have? Can I? If my kids are watching this, it annoys me. Don't do it. And then I'm a sucker and I'm like, yeah, sure. Anyway, so declining birth rates. The other part of that is that because both parents are working, okay? 50, 60, 70 years ago, you still had that traditional, stereotypical stay-at-home mum generally. Who would raise kids, have 2 kids, have 3 kids, because she was just there. The man worked and the man made enough money to do all the things and the woman just raised the kids, okay? Lovely. These days, it's not like that. Cost of living, you probably need both people working, or generally these days, a lot of females are very career and professional driven, which is excellent, okay? But because of those reasons, people don't just stay at home anymore and have kids. They're like, okay, we've had a kid now, let's get back to work and get on with the rest of my life because I've still got to achieve my goals, let alone the goals of my children. So these 2 things in tandem, less people having babies, more people living longer, means that this gets skewed up in that 65 and older category. And if it gets to 1 in 4, that's crazy, right? So yeah, that means like 3/4 of the Australian are under 65 and 1/4 of them are over 65, and that's not proportional either. So over 1/3 of 65, another piece of data I should mention, over 1/3 of people who are 65 and above were actually born overseas living in Australia. So that tells us that we need to have more culturally diverse aged care facilities and providers here in Australia. So not only do you have aged care facilities just catering for all Australians, but people that work in those facilities may need to be multilingual. You may need information and brochures presented on medical issues such as dementia in multilingual capacity, because we have a third of these guys being culturally diverse. And the last point, the retirement age in Australia is 67 currently, okay? Hopefully it's not going to go up. However, the average age of retirement in Australia is actually 55. The gap, why is the gap? We're not all retiring early because we're rich, trust me. It's generally driven by health issues and medical retirement, okay? People get to the age of 55 and they can't do a physical demanding job anymore, so they become made redundant, or they just find someone younger and cheaper and more enthusiastic and energetic to do their job for them. Or maybe these people are getting those lifelong, well not lifelong, but debilitating conditions that they need to look after for the next 30, 40 years. Cancer, CVD, diabetes, dementia, all that kind of stuff, and that forces them to be medically retired early from their job. And then that places extra burden, because all of a sudden you've got these people who need care 24/7 and they're not even in the 65 and older category. So yeah, it's a big snowball effect, which I've mentioned before. So that's just some data points on where we're currently at here in Australia. We'll rub this off and we'll get on to the next part of the syllabus. So what is healthy aging, right? Which is what we're all sort of striving for. So the WHO World Health Organization, they define this as the process of developing and maintaining functional ability that enables well-being in older age, okay? That is to say that you can still have chronic conditions that you may have for the rest of your life, such as diabetes, arthritis, etc., okay? Cardiovascular disease, all right? But if managed correctly, it does not impact your function or your well-being, and therefore you can still live a normal, healthy life. So this is sort of my version of the definition that you should probably write in your answers. So healthy aging is the focus on maintaining physical, mental and social health, so older adults can remain independent, active and engage in their communities, all right? For example, a 75-year-old with osteoarthritis, all right, manages this with hydrotherapy, so strengthening exercises that put low loads on the bones, and medication that they take regularly. They can therefore live independently. They volunteer like twice a week at the local Vinnies, and they actively play and engage with their grandchildren. That is the definition and an example of healthy aging. Healthy aging doesn't mean you get to 90 and you're like sick and illness free. I mean, that would be healthy aging too, but this is a more realistic example because everybody's going to get something, let's be honest. Right, that's healthy aging. Okay, so our third part, it was looking at opportunities and challenges of our aging population. So let's look at opportunities first, the positives, all right? What's good about healthy aging? So the first one is community contribution, which does alleviate a lot of our challenges, all right? Such as being able to volunteer, just not only in a medical sense, but also just volunteering in general, all right, with the local council, at the library, etc. But we also do have caregiving, and caregiving could be, so if you are healthily aged and your partner may not be healthy, then you can look after them, which therefore alleviates having to go to an aged care facility. Or maybe you could be like a community carer, so you go around and you look after a bunch of other people in your local community who are aged and have chronic conditions, but they still want to stay at home. So you're the healthy one and you go help them. And not only are you helping them medically, so physically with their physical health, but mentally, so mental stimulation from conversation, and socially, being able to engage with them because they know they may not be able to leave the house, but you are going to them. So it's a good thing. So there is a big snowball effect of negatives with the aged population, but there's also a positive one as well if we can achieve healthy aging. Mentorships is another one I wrote down. A lot of aged people like to mentor younger people who are up and coming in certain roles. The second one is an economic contribution, which you don't really think about a lot, but it is a significant one. So the extended work age is another thing. So while the retirement age is 67, you can choose to continue working, which therefore alleviates economic concern because you've still got people working. You know, like you think about teacher shortages, and I know that no one really wants a 75-year-old teacher, but a 75-year-old teacher is probably going to be better than no teacher, for example. But also this concept of grey nomads, and you've probably heard the concept before. You know, it's a bunch of people who are retired and they generally will then hook up a camper van, or they'll get themselves an RV and travel, okay? How does this help economic contribution? Well, tourism, okay? Everywhere they go and stop, they have to pay to stay. They'll, you know, buying food at restaurants or local supermarkets and stuff. And most of the time, when people retire and they go on these grey nomad journeys, they're not just sticking to like the coastal popular town. They'll go to places they haven't been before. So they might go out west, you know, to, you know, Broke or Burke or Cobar and places like that don't get a lot of tourism. And all of a sudden you're putting money into local communities out there. So it helps regional economy, which is great, okay? The third point I just wrote down, like if you can have healthy aging people, then, and they're all in a local area, then you can have a healthy aging community, all right? They can organize their own social events, you know, just go for like drinks or dances, or, you know, you have like a restaurant group that meet on Wednesdays at a certain restaurant, or book clubs and play sports. And I mean like, you know, league and stuff, but, you know, meet up together and maybe have a round of golf or some light tennis or anything like that, okay? Benefits physical, mental, social health, all that kind of stuff. So there are lots of opportunities and how healthy people who age healthily can contribute. However, there are also lots of challenges. So the first one is the obvious one, the strain on the healthcare system, okay? A lot of these people who are 65 and older do have a chronic condition and they require ongoing treatment and care, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in a bed at hospital 24/7, but it probably means that some of them need to be checked on daily at home, or some of them do need to be in an aged care facility where they are checked on all the time, okay? So that places an increased need on hospital beds, increased need on medical services, which therefore leads into our second point, the demand on the aged care system. So aged care facilities need more facilities, need more home care packages. So home care package comes along with community nursing and making sure the adequate housing. So you can have a home care package, and so basically someone will come out and assess the home, whether it is safe or not for a person who with a chronic condition can stay at home. And if it's not, then you can make little alterations, which the government do subsidise a lot of the time, to make it safe, because subsidising someone to get some rails put in, different flooring, etc., is heaps cheaper than putting them in an aged care facility. Okay, so that's good. All right, but then you still have the issue of like community nursing. So you need to have someone who is dedicated to that person, and they may visit once a week, twice a week, daily, depending on what the condition is and the needs of the individual. The third one, falls and injuries. All right, I have mentioned it before. Injuries is like the leading cause of hospitalisation for aged people in Australia. Something simple that you guys would do every day, well, not every day you're falling over, but you know, you just fall over, you trip, or maybe you just like, you stumble, but then you regain your balance and you're all good, okay? Well, aged people, they don't regain their balance, they fall. And when they fall, a lot of the time they do have some underlying osteoarthritis, and their bones can be more brittle, and therefore they fall, bones break. When the bone splinters, it goes into organs and muscles and things, and they have massive internal bleeding, and you can see how this snowballs, all right? Which is very bad. It is extremely challenging, which is hence why, and this actually relates to both of my grandmothers at the moment, you get to a point where you just don't feel safe, okay? It's safe at home. Home is good. You know the layout, generally you can move around and no issues, but the instant you have to go outside or go to the shops or, you know, just walk down to the park, there's too many, you know, uneven ground, you know, there could be some wind, you don't know what other people are doing, there could be animals like dogs that can knock you over, and just, there's little things like that, because if you fall, bad things happen when you're old, unfortunately, so therefore, it's safe at home. Let's stay home. And then you can see how that can play on physical, mental, social health, etc. Okay. So these two in combination, they lead to this situation which we have a term for called bed block, all right? So let's say there's an old person and they have fallen over, okay? They've been rushed to hospital, they've had internal bleeding, they've been in a hospital bed for 10 days, and now the doctor discharges them from hospital. That's good. So they're not like fully healed or anything, but they're okay to go home. They don't need to be monitored at hospital anymore. But okay, back it up. They're not okay to go home. The doctor discharges them with the proviso that they now go into an aged care facility, okay? So discharged from hospital to an aged care facility. However, there's no availability in the aged care facility because it's full. But the person can't go home, and they could apply for a home care package, but that could take weeks and months to come through to make the home a safe place. So we have this bed block situation. So the hospital bed remains occupied by the person who doesn't need the hospital bed, but they've got nowhere else to go because the aged care facilities are full and their home care package hasn't come through in-house and the home isn't safe enough for them. So they're occupying a hospital bed, and remember, hospital beds, even though they have different wings in the hospital, it's an allocation on staffing ratios, etc. So that hospital bed could actually be needed for someone else who isn't even in the aging population. They may need it for, heart surgery on someone young, or, any number of conditions that you go to hospital for. So that's bed block, and it's a real thing here in Australia. So they were some opportunities and challenges experienced by the aging population. We've got 2 more syllabus points to go.